Hello, welcome back to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for Wednesday, November 8th. We got a big boy slate today, 14 games, ton of stuff to go through. We have some chalky spots and some spots to pivot off, and we'll go over all of that very soon. But before we get into it, come join us at LionStar. If you do not want to, try the $39.99 per month, you can go through the app stores and get a free 3-day trial. Try us out that way, or use our promo offers. They are below in the description or right here on the website. You can click through and get those. Just make sure to deposit and play with at least $10 or $25 if you are on Thrive. Now, let's get into the fun. We got an interesting slate, and obviously 14 games. One thing that I think is really interesting is we have a 14-game slate, and after 5 o'clock West Coast time, there's only 3 games. 1 at 5:30, 2 at 7. So not much as far as late night hammers here, but there are quite a few guys in those games that I do like. So we will be talking about them for sure. Now, biggest news today is obviously the Pelicans. They're without CJ McCollum and without Zion Williamson, making the Pelicans pretty chalky. Nobody more chalky than Jordan Hawkins. So we have Hawkins showing at 28% right now. Look, it's a 14 game slate, and I still think he's going to be more like 40%. Maybe even higher than that. So we have him as a 7x value at his price, and that is way higher than the next closest value here. So next is 5.8 with Valanciunas and 7 with Hawkins. So with that, this is one of those situations where, hey, even though he's super chalky, I'm probably going to have a decent amount of him. I think there's going to be plenty of places on this big of a slate to get different. You might just need to have Hawkins. He's too cheap. His, average score is likely to be above 6x. And so, kind of just probably got to go there, unfortunately. Now, if you do want to get different, there are a bunch of ways you can get different on that same team or elsewhere, and we're going to go through that. Next, chalkiest peak, Malcolm Brogdon. Look, I was really wary of Brogdon when he was going to be starting. I did not think they would jump him up to 44 minutes or 39 minutes, but they are. And in this case, at 7.9K, he's in an absolute great spot. He's a 1.1, 1.15 per minute fantasy guy. So far this season, 1.17. He's just very good and in a pretty good matchup here. If he's playing all those minutes, it's another spot that I'm not afraid to just eat some chalk. Now, I'm not going to have anywhere near as much Brogdon as Hawkins, but I'm going to have, quite a bit. Next, we got Kelly Olynyk. So Walker Kessler is doubtful. Olynyk is expected to slide into the starting center spot like he did all last season. And look, he absolutely has the capability to go for 40 when he's a starter and he plays 30 minutes. Now, I don't really expect him to go 30, but I do expect him to go, 26 to 30. And at right around a fantasy point per minute average in a very good matchup, I think he's in a good spot here, and I'm going to have a little bit. Because he has the dual position eligibility between center and power forward, that's really the reason I'm getting to a little more of him than I would normally. If he was just at center, I might not be getting to a ton just because I don't think the ceiling is there with him. Now, it can be, absolutely can be, but I think the most likely outcome is mid-20s fantasy points, which is 6x, but won't necessarily win you a tournament. LaMelo Ball, next highest owned guy. I like Ball. I will have a little bit of him. His minutes have finally gone up, and That's a good thing. He's in a good matchup. Without Terry Rozier, he's going to have the ball in his hands a little bit more, and definitely a triple-double threat on this slate. Of the chalky guys, Giannis is likely the spot that I might be getting off a little bit. Look, his salary has dropped significantly, and he absolutely could blow 10K salary out of the water. However, with how shaky he has been and this team has been so far to start the season, I'm not too worried about getting off of him. The Bucks are big-time favorites against the Pistons. And, for him to really, really get there with Dame on the court and Middleton, he's going to need to play 34-plus minutes. And I just don't know if he does in this slate. And a lot can go wrong at this salary. Now, am I going to have a little bit? Yeah, sure. I'm not totally fading him, but I'm not going to have, say, 25% of my lineups with him. Gordon Hayward, don't mind. PJ Washington, I don't mind. Now let's get in a little bit position by position. So next chalky guy that is popping up is Chris Paul. 10%, don't really mind. That's fine if you want to go there. I like it, don't love it. I'm going to have a little bit. Cade Cunningham, the same. Now, the low-owned guys that I am getting to, I did it all on DraftKings. The low-owned guys that I am getting to are Killian Hayes. I think he's in a very interesting spot. Without Jaden Ivey, he played a few extra minutes. So if you look his last couple games, he's actually been getting the minutes. Now, with Cade Cunningham, I don't think he is a, fantasy point per minute guy that is around 1 like he was without Cade Cunningham, but he very much could be 0.9-ish or something like that, and he's going to have the shot to play a lot of minutes with a depleted Pistons team. Sasser is a nice little value piece here. He played 33 last game. He's been playing solid minutes. I don't mind him either. Just don't love it. Halliburton has just been absolutely crushing, and I like him in this matchup versus the Jazz. Definitely getting to a little bit of Halliburton at that ownership. Jalen Brunson is another one. I think he is in a very good spot versus the Spurs, and he's a guy that, low 8 salary could go for 50 plus. And that's the type of ceiling I like at low ownership. So definitely interested going there. As well as Jordan Poole, Schroeder, and D'Angelo Russell. Get over shooting guard. Strother, played 19 minutes and just lit it up the other day. Would not expect that to happen once again. So I'm not really on that, and I think it's just because he's the stone cold minimum that he's getting some love. Now, he could play some extra minutes because Nuggets are without Jamal Murray. I just don't think I can count on it. Brandon Ingram. Look, his usage goes way up without CJ McCollum and Zion Williamson. The fact that he's 11% owned right now is very surprising to me. This is a guy that has a 60-point ceiling when he has this usage. And he's going to get it. He's going to play all the minutes he possibly can in an okay matchup. And if the field isn't fully going there, I love this spot for him. So I will absolutely be going there. Some other spots, Matt Ryan, 4,300. He's going to play extra minutes. They're majorly depleted. He played 25 last game. He's got up to 35 when he has started. And he's a guy that can shoot the ball very well. If he is shooting well, he could blow out his salary. Anthony Edwards. I think he's in a very good spot versus the Pelicans, who are depleted. And, hey, at 9K, for a guy that is continually right around 50 with a 60-point possible, I am all in on that. 5.3x at that point, at that salary is real nice. We got to talk about Cam Thomas. Now, I don't love him. The reason is I don't think I can count on him being a 1.16 fantasy point per minute over his last 20 starts kind of guy. I think he's most likely right around, 1 point per fantasy minute. The thing with him is he can score the ball. He is a bucket. But he has to be a bucket to be able to score. He puts up very little when it comes to other stats. So it really just all comes down on to if he is scoring. He has to be putting up mid 30 points to really make the optimal lineup at his salary. So he is risky. That's why his ownership's going to stay low, but he does have that ceiling. So he is someone you should at least consider at 7K there. And you could do worse than getting to him. D'Angelo, I like him. We talked about him. Jalen Green, I think, is an interesting spot here. Low 6K. Lakers are meh. And look, he's repeatedly been right around his 6X-ish. So I do like him, but I don't love him. The fact that he is so low owned is the reason that I'm kind of getting to some of him. And really in his price range, there's not a ton I really like. KCP is somebody we got to talk about. So on DraftKings, I don't really care for him much. He's just okay at 5K salary. Now, I totally think 30 points without Jamal Murray is in the cards versus the Golden State Warriors. But on FanDuel, where he's 4,400, I absolutely love KCP, and I'm going to be getting to a lot of him. And right now, nobody's going there. So I'm all about him on FanDuel and on DraftKings. It's just meh. Klay Thompson is another guy that I'm getting to more on FanDuel. His salary is over a K cheaper, and I like that. The issue with him, even on FanDuel, is that he lives and dies by his three. And so if he's hitting, then he's going to be fine for you. If he's not, he's just going to be like a 5X guy and not really help you win a tournament. And when he is really on, is hit or miss there. So Jordan Clarkson in a very good matchup. I like him. He has the ceiling. My worry is his minutes. His minutes have been all over the place so far this season. However, I do think his normal is going to be in 32, 34 range. So I like him. We have him projected at 31 minutes right now. Personally, I might bump that up a little bit to bump up, this projection to try and get a little bit more of him. I think he's an interesting spot, and he's a guy that, while only doing like 0.8 fantasy points per minute, all last season he was more like 0.95. So he has been producing under what he generally does, and when he gets hot, he can really score the ball and put up some fantasy points. So I think he is interesting. Get over to small forwards. So high owned guys, Jay Crowder, Gordon Hayward. I don't mind Gordon Hayward. The Hornets are depleted a little bit. No Terry Rozier, which means his usage is going to go up a little bit. I understand playing him in a good matchup versus Washington. I love playing anybody versus Washington these days. Jay Crowder, on the other hand, look, he is very cheap, so I get why guys are going here. But I don't see much ceiling for him. Can he get 6X? Absolutely. Can he get 7X? That's, a little more doubtful. And that's my issue with him, is I don't think he can be a guy that can get you a value piece that can get you 10X. On a slate where we have a ton of value options, I don't feel like you have to go to him. And obviously, to win a GPP, you're going to need a couple guys or a guy or two that are able to go 8 to 10x. And I just don't believe that is him in his current role, playing mid-20s in minutes. So that's my problem with him. I told you I like Ingram already. Asuar Thompson, I like this kid, and I'm going to keep playing him, especially while nobody is. I mean, mid-40s, he can hit routinely with how he's able to get steals and blocks and rebounds and all that. So I definitely like him. Not going to go overboard in this matchup, but I do like him. Herbert Jones. He is probably going to be right around my second highest owned Pelican. I think he's in a good spot. There is no CJ, no Zion, so I think he gets extra minutes. He is on the injury report, though. So we have to make sure he's going to play, but I think he's in a very good spot if he is going to play. Now, back in, what was it? March, I think it was this game here, he did win me $100,000, so maybe I have a special spot in my heart for him, but I think he's in a really good spot and has that potential, and we've seen some real big ceiling games out of him when he's needed that usage, and he's not very high owned, so I am absolutely intrigued to go to him. Now, one thing, Herbert Jones, Matt Ryan, Hawkins, those three type guys, I would make sure I only have 2 of them in a lineup. I would not go to 3 of those guys, just because I think it's similar ways they're going to be scoring fantasy points, and having 2 or more than 2 of them all do it is just not very likely. Can it happen? Yes, just not likely. DeMar DeRozan, he's still way too cheap. I mean, it's a guy that can easily go 40 or 50 fantasy points at 7,300. He's in a fine matchup. I'm not scared of the Suns defensive-wise, and he's a guy that can, get excited and do well versus a tough opponent. He had 2 45-point games versus them last year. Yes, it's a different Suns team, but I like it. Jimmy B, as long as he's this cheap, you gotta talk about him week in, week out. But just like we have every other show so far this year, is major problem with him. He just doesn't try earlier in the season. He picks his spots. He tried versus the Lakers. Probably doesn't try against a Memphis team that is struggling right now. Mikal Bridges, I like versus the Clippers. I think he's in a good spot. We talked about Anthony Edwards, like him as well. And Lauri Markkanen, we'll talk about him for power forwards also. All right, so don't really need to talk about the high-owned guys too much. I think Kuzma's in a good spot. This is probably one of the games it is one of the games I will consider playing him. 1.1 fantasy per minute guy for while he's been on the Wizards, and versus a Hornets team that is allergic to playing D is a little bit interesting. My issue with the Wizards is they're spreading out the minutes big time to people. They're only, if you look through the game logs here, Kuzma's 30 minutes most games, and we really need him to get up to that 34 36 to be able to absolutely, nuke the slate. Julius Randle. Look, this dude's doing everything but scoring right now. He's just not shooting the ball very well. Now, that shot did come around a little bit last game. If that is here to stay, we're going to see his salary back up into the 9Ks quickly. While it's down here, I'm going to keep plugging away at him. He's in a good spot versus the Spurs, so I like it. Issue? If Wemby's on him, he might have a tough time to get his shot off because Wemby can cover a lot of ground quick. Cat is the same thing. His price is just too low. He's been around 40, every single game this season. and he still hasn't had a ceiling game. And he can do that whenever, especially against a Pelicans team that is reeling and a little short on guys. Aaron Gordon, he is cheaper on FanDuel, but I like him on both sites. Without Jamal Murray, he gets a big-time bump up in fantasy points per minute. He's also likely to stay on the court a little bit more. So he played 36 last game, 35, 35. I think this is a good spot versus the Warriors. It shouldn't be a blowout. He's going to get the minutes, and I think he's very interesting going at lower owned. The lineups I ran on FanDuel earlier, Gordon was my second highest owned player. I don't think I'm going to keep it like that, but it's something to note that he is a guy that I'm getting to a lot on FanDuel. And we got to talk about Lauri Markkanen. Great spot versus the Pacers, 241 total and 60-point upside. There's nobody really on this Pacers team that can stop him. So I think this is a really interesting spot that I'm going to be getting into a lot. He did well versus him last year, a 50 and a 47, and nobody's going there. I just don't understand why everybody's allergic to playing Lauri Markkanen. Guy's consistent and has a ceiling. So I got to say I like it, as I do Kristaps Porzingis. Hasn't done much lately, but most of his games he hasn't been really playing the minutes, but it's been blowouts. Now, I don't think they're going to blow out the 76ers, and Kristaps can put up some fantasy points in bunches. He can block some shots. He can do a lot of different things. He did well versus Philly last year. Now, I know it was a different team, but he's a guy with a 50-point ceiling in a spot where he likely is going to play 34 plus minutes, and I think that's enough to consider him at 1% ownership. And center spot. Kelly Olynyk, we did talk about a little bit. We will touch on him again now. I like him, don't love him. The ceiling's not, totally there. And I keep bringing up ceiling today, and the reason is it is a 14-game slate. There's going to be some wild combination of players that have a big ceiling that get it done. Today is not likely one where a 5X player, allows you to win the GPP. Can it happen? Obviously. If Chalk fails, if Hawkins fails, much more likely that a lower owned player or lower X player is able to get in. But I am playing this slate like you're going to need a really big score and you're going to need some ceiling. So guys that don't really have that ceiling, I'm not looking to play today, and I'm going to be trying to take them out of my lineups a little bit more. Obviously, Jokic, Embiid, highest ceilings on the slate, 100% in play. Would consider either of them, especially if everybody's going to be paying down with, say, Olynyk or Naz Reid. Now, I don't mind Naz Reid. I think he's okay. But once again, he's a guy that likely doesn't have enough ceiling, playing mid-20 minutes, and it's not likely he plays more minutes and drops 40 burger. Can he? Yes. Just not likely. Mitchell Robinson's somebody I think you got to consider. Look, this guy, when he stays out of foul trouble, is playing big minutes. He's a guy who has been around a fantasy point per minute most of his career, but his ceiling games, he's more like 1.1, 1.2 fantasy points per minute. And at 5K, that's going to add up a lot if he's playing, 30, 34 minutes. So I think Mitchell Robinson is absolutely in consideration in a decently high scoring game. We should talk about this Utah spot with Walker Kessler likely being out. I think there is a lot they could do with the center spot. Obviously, most likely Olynyk is starting, But throughout the game, they could just throw John Collins in the center spot for a little bit. And if they do that, I like Collins a lot more. I think Collins actually has a little bit of a ceiling in that spot. And it's something to kind of at least think through. They do have Omer Yurtseven as a backup, who right now I expect to play a few minutes, maybe 16 or so. But if Olenek is only playing, say, 26, 28, then there's still some additional center minutes out, which could go to Collins, which definitely would help him raise that ceiling. And at a 241 total, I think it's worth at least talking about. Jaren Jackson's in a tough matchup, but he's crushed Philly before, put up 45 against them, and there's still no jaw. He can get blocks and get a ton of them. The Heat are a very good defensive team, but Bam is a small center, and that leads to, maybe a couple more blocks for Jaren. Isaiah Stewart's a tough one for me. So the reason I want to bring this up is Jalen Duren is questionable. If he is out again, Bagley will likely, slide into the starting spot. But I think Stewart gets more minutes, and his minutes are a little safer. So I think he's a little bit interesting. When everybody's on Bagley at similar price, I think I might rather just pivot over to Stewart. And then Alperen Sengun. Lakers cannot stop a big man. This guy has a huge ceiling, 60-point ceiling. In this matchup, I think he has a 40-point floor and, really has the ability to go nuclear, as Bam just did against the Lakers with a 20-point, 20-rebound triple-double, which was just, absolutely nuts. But the Lakers team just can't stop anybody inside. It's been that way for years, and it appears it is that way again. So at low ownership, Sengun is super interesting. So that'll do it for today. We got 14 games, a lot of different ways to go. I know I was on DraftKings most of the slate. Just understand, though, that I tried to talk about both FanDuel and DraftKings throughout the day. The only reason I'm on DraftKings is I only liked guys on that side today. But I absolutely mentioned if I liked a guy on one of them better than the other. If you have some questions, hit me up in chat. I'll be in there hanging out throughout the day. Got a lot of other stuff to do, but I tried to keep an eye on it and answer questions whenever I can. You guys have a good one. I'll be back not tomorrow because I think it's only a 2-game slate, but I will be back Friday. No, actually I won't. It's Veterans Day, so I think I'll be skipping the Friday one and see you guys on Monday. So have a good one, guys. Good luck. I'll be dropping the NFL DFS video tomorrow morning. Have a good one. Good luck. Let's win some money. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.